Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the substitution.
Assemblywoman Murphy moves the substitution. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. So moved, Madam Clerk.
On third reading, final passage, Senate Bill 1385, establishes a 4-year pilot program in Wilson County for electronic monitoring of certain domestic violence offenders.
Assemblywoman Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the
Assemblywoman Murphy moves the bill. Madam Clerk, please open the chamber for the vote. All recorded procedures on the property. Madam Clerk, please close the machine and take a tally.
Mr. Speaker, Senate Bill 1385 has received 74 votes in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 abstentions.
Senate Bill 1385 passes 74 votes in the affirmative, 0 votes in the negative, 0 abstentions. So declare the bill passed. Let's go take the report to pass the bill on the first.
Motion by Senator Bowles, resolved that the Senate Bill 5420,
Microphone.
Senate Bill 1458, be substituted for Senate Bill 2138, which has been approved. And that Senator Nolan will third final passage.
Assemblyman Mullin. Mr. Speaker, I move the substitution. Assemblyman Mullin moves the substitution. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. So moved, Madam Clerk.
On third reading, final passage, Senate Bill 1450, requires permission of the Department of Veterans Affairs to develop mobile applications to provide guidance on available resources to veterans and their families.
Assemblyman Mullin. Mr. Speaker, I move the bill. Assemblyman Mullin moves the bill. Madam Clerk, please open the machine for a vote. All recorded procedures for this property. Madam Clerk, please close the machine and take a tally.
Mr. Speaker, Senate Bill 1458 has received 74 votes in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 abstentions.
Senate Bill 1458 has received 74 votes in the affirmative, 0 votes in the negative, and 0 abstentions. I declare the bill passed and the bill will be in force of the bill on the first.
Motion by Senator Reynolds Jackson, resolved that pursuant to Rule 15.1, that Senate Bill 1487 be substituted for Senate Bill 6625 is read. And that Senator Reynolds Jackson is on full final passage of Senate Bill 1487.
Assemblywoman Reynolds Jackson. Assemblywoman Jackson moves the substitution. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. So moved, Madam Clerk.
On third reading, final passage, Senate Bill 1487, requires application option enhancement for certain housing, shelter, and rental assistance administered by DCA.
Assemblywoman Reynolds Jackson. Assemblywoman Reynolds Jackson moves the bill. Madam Clerk, please open the machine for the vote. For all recorded procedures for this property. Madam Clerk, please open the machine and take a tally.
Mr. Speaker, Senate Bill 1487 has
Senate Bill 1487 receives 73 votes in the affirmative, 0 votes in the negative, and 0 abstentions. I declare the bill passed. The bill will be report bill on the closed session.
Motion by Senator Reynolds Jackson, resolved that pursuant to Rule 5120, that Senate Bill 1577 be substituted for Senate Bill 928 as applicable, and that Senator Reynolds Jackson is on full final passage until 1577.
Assemblywoman Reynolds Jackson. Assemblywoman Reynolds Jackson moves the substitution. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. So moved, Madam Clerk.
On third reading, final passage, Senate Bill 1577, requires maintenance of road speeds around the city capital.
Assemblywoman Reynolds Jackson. Assemblywoman Reynolds Jackson moves the bill. Madam Clerk, please open the machine for the vote. All recorded procedures for this property. Madam Clerk, please close the machine and take a tally.
Mr. Speaker, Senate Bill 1577 has received 75 votes in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 abstentions.
Senate Bill 1577 has received 74 votes in the affirmative, 0 votes in the negative, 0 abstentions. I declare the bill passed. The bill will be reported to the bill on the closed session.
Motion by Senator Calhoun, resolved that pursuant to Rule 5420, that Senate Bill 2160
Bill on the clerk's list.
Motion by the Lord, Bill passed. Resolved by the Commonwealth of Wisconsin, that Senate Bill 2346 be placed before Senate Bill 2368 be laid down for, and that Senate Bill passed on the Supreme Council, Senate Bill 2346.
Assemblywoman Lopez. Assemblywoman Lopez moves the substitution. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. So moved. Madam Clerk.
On third reading by passage, Senate Bill 2346 creates no regular department program to shelter at-risk
republicanos apenas intentaron cerrar la sesión legislativa, pero dijimos que no. Pues vamos a continuar contra las votaciones.
Motion by majority rule allows that pursuant to specific content as Senator 4845 and substitute for Senator 6118 was set down, and that majority of the rule will provide time for Senator 4845.
Assemblywoman Quijano. Assemblywoman Quijano, for the substitution. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed say nay. So moved, Madam Clerk.
On third reading, final passage, Senate Bill 4845, concerning municipal digitization and recovery.
Assemblyman Garvin on the bill. Forgive me, Assemblywoman Quijano. Assemblywoman Quijano moves the bill. Now, Assemblyman Garland. Thank you.
In this room, my vote counts just as much as any member of this 80 person chamber. But if I'm at home, my vote and the votes of 38,000 Atlantic City residents count for nothing. 9 years ago, the state takeover was an unprecedented seizure of our voting rights and our right to self-determination. It was only justified then by the city's poor financial planning before my time as mayor and how we cheated on the brink of bankruptcy. But since then, in partnership with the state, the city has regained its footing. Through the casino pilot, the IATs, the Contras, the IATs, and the relative stability brought on by the state's monitoring, municipal debt has been reduced. Moody's has signaled that the city has reached investor grade. Private development is returning to bring back the blank canvas neighborhoods and the long vacant beachfront lots. The state has helped the city to go from walking to running again, so I can understand the reason behind a takeover extension. However, this learning and working period must have an end in sight. Just like every parent helps launch their children into the fulfillment of life, the state must begin to loosen its grip on Atlantic City. Instead, through new provisions in this takeover extension, it seems the state wants Atlantic City to go back to crawl. In the bill, the state would be authorized to create a master redevelopment director for the city, which would further strip its residents from deciding the future direction and development in their own city. The city's zoning and planning boards could be disbanded in a surge of the powers the state assembly would assume at the beginning of this journey. This is an insult to our mayor that was duly elected by the people and city council elected by the people. This is along this direction. I often tell people who wonder about the future of Atlantic City that without an end game by the state runs the risk of turning Atlantic City into its personal Vietnam. Well, with this intensification of control over the city, I am reminded of LBJ's troop buildup after 1965. Without a plan for the state to lead, it's a wrong direction then, and it's a wrong direction now. I urge this chamber to vote against this again, against this version of the state's takeover that deprives the city's residents of even more of their civil rights. I do understand that this bill would not have come before this body unless you had 41 votes. And so I
You're voting on A 4870.
Are all recorded who wish to be recorded, properly recorded? Madam Clerk, close the machine and take a tally.
Madam Speaker, Assembly Bill 4872 has been several votes affirmative, 26 negative, and 0 abstentions.
Assembly Bill 4872 having received 47 votes in the affirmative, 26 votes in the negative, and 0 abstentions, I declare the bill passed and the bill taking the usual course of past bills. Bill on the clerk's desk.
On third reading, final passage, Assembly Bill 4463, sponsored by one person, Journal Action for mere residents. Provides for rehabilitative release for certain incarcerated persons.
Assemblymember Reynolds Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the bill.
Assemblywoman Reynolds Jackson moves the bill. Madam Clerk, open the machine for a vote. Clerk, close the machine and take a tally.
Madam Speaker, Assembly Bill 4463 has received 47 votes affirmative, 20 votes negative, and 0 abstentions.
Assembly Bill 4463 having received 47 votes in the affirmative, 22 votes in the negative, and 0 abstentions, I declare the bill passed and the bill take the usual course of past bills. Bill on the clerk's desk.
On third reading, final passage, Assembly Bill 4219, sponsored by Simon Mullins. Amends fiscal year 2026 Appropriations Act to reassign appropriations to the City of Kingston for capital projects to part-time benefits and community partners.
Assemblyman Mullin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the bill.
Assemblyman Mullin moves the bill. Madam Clerk, open the machine for a vote. Are all recorded who wish to be recorded, properly recorded? Madam Clerk, close the machine and take a tally.
Madam Speaker, Assembly Bill 6219 has received 51 votes in the affirmative, 24 in the negative, and 0 abstentions.
Assembly Bill 6219 having received 51 votes in the affirmative, 24 votes in the negative, and 0 abstentions, I declare the bill passed and the bill take the usual course of past bills. Bill on the clerk's desk.
On third reading, final passage, Assembly Bill 6283, sponsored by Darlene Greenwald, and its vice president Bowen and Hudson. Saving our science and protecting our past.
Assemblyman Mullin, White.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On behalf of the majority, we recommend the bill.
Thank you, Assemblyman. I'm sorry. Thank you, Assemblyman Mullin. Assemblyman Bergen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this bill, it's a fake benefit for these guys. And it insults me that you're doing this bill. Because all the majority does is beat down business constantly and then do something like this that pretends it's doing something good. And look, it's like a fake security company. Yeah, everybody do. The business groups are supporting it because they have Stockholm syndrome. They're just happy to do anything for them. But time and time and time and time again, you are beating on business. The worst part about this bill is that it crowds out real reform. Here are some things that you've done over the past 25 years that you should undo instead of doing this bill.
Assemblyman is on this bill.
Madam Speaker,
On the bill.
I hate to
You
do this,
mentioned,
Madam. Yep.
other bills that you could bring up on this bill.
No problem. Madam Speaker, I hate to do this one day. But there is no mention in the rules. Rule 7:3 says remarks shall be confined to the question under debate. There is no mention in all the rules about being on the bill. I provided staff today with an OLS document dated August 19, 2025, in which they opine on what the question is that is under debate. In that, I provided the staff, you can reference if you like. OLS says, the bill itself is a proposal for which the motion or question may be understood to be whether that bill should be passed by the Assembly. So, Madam Speaker, we are not confined to be on the bill by any rule, we're confined to be on the question. The question is, should the bill be passed by the Assembly? I'm making an argument that you should not pass this bill because it is a big security blanket that overlays critical, catastrophic, business-killing legislation you've already done, and we're about to tell you to say to that, but have at it. Anything? Okay, then I'll continue. Madam Speaker, like I said, this bill should not be passed by the Assembly because it crowds out bill reform. Here's an example of bill reform that it is crowding out and why it should not be passed today. This body passed minimum wage increases that are killing diners. Reform that. Don't do this. This body passed business-killing paid family leave bills that should be reformed instead of doing this bill today, so you should not pass this bill today. This body hurt diners by banning polystyrene food containers, banning plastic carry-out bags. Reform those instead of this, and that's why you should not pass this bill today. This body has increased the cost of everything the diner has to buy in order to make their product, by increasing the gas tax, diesel tax, and toll increases. Those are examples of reforms you should do instead of this fake security blanket legislation that does nothing, and is why this bill should not be passed today. In the 25 years that this bill covers, the restaurants have been in existence, property taxes in New Jersey under your leadership have gone up by 65% before that. That is a reform that is not allowed to afford this today because you have a fake security blanket bill like this that does nothing meaningful for anybody. Madam Speaker, it's a shame that our business community should suffer so much abuse by the Democrats. This bill is your attempt to put an overlay of a fake benefit over years and years and years and years of abuse, all of which should be reformed. This undermines the trust that businesses have in us. This bill is a gimmick. It's insulting. And that, Madam Speaker, is 100% on the question of why the bill should not be passed by the Assembly today. The answer is no. Don't pass it. Thank you.
Thank you. Assemblyman Rum.
Speaker, thank you on the bill, please. Speaker, respectfully, we have so many priorities in the state of New Jersey. Our business community has suffered for years by virtue of so many bad tax policies. This particular bill, which offers a 1-year tax credit for a certain category, certain classification of diners, truly is nothing more than a newsworthy, perhaps, gimmick. What we should be doing is trying to secure institutional change that will benefit all business within the state of New Jersey, not just a particular classification, in this case, diners with a history of 25 or 30 years, but all businesses for the betterment of all of the people within the state. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Assemblyman. Madam Clerk, please open the machine for a vote. Are all recorded who wish to be recorded properly recorded? Madam Clerk, close the machine and take a tally.
Madam Speaker, Senate Bill 6283 received 61 votes in affirmative, 9 in negative, and 2 abstentions.
Assembly Bill 6283 having received 60 votes in the affirmative, 9 votes in the negative, and 2 abstentions, I declare the bill passed and the bill take the usual course of passed bills. Bill on the clerk's desk.
Conservative final passage, AR 208, sponsored by Congress 408. Urging governor to designate 2026 as year of Black history in New Jersey and commemorate 250 years of American independence.
Assemblywoman McCoy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the resolution.
Assemblywoman McCoy moves the resolution. Madam Clerk, open the machine for a vote. Are all recorded who wish to be recorded properly recorded? Madam Clerk, close the machine and take a tally.
Madam Speaker, AR
moved, Madam Clerk.
On third reading, final passage, Senate Bill 76, revising certain references to advisory committee on implementation practices and statutory and regulatory law.
Assemblywoman Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Assemblyman Andretti. Excuse me.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On the bill. Thank you. I'm strongly opposed to this bill, which transfers long-standing primary references to the Federal Advisory Committee on Implementation Practices to the New Jersey Department of Health. I have numerous concerns, including that the primary impetus for this radical change is political, as this is based on disagreement with the President's administration of Washington. The acting commissioner of health appeared in front of the health. And thirdly, I would like to know from him, what is the process by which vaccine decisions are going to be made? It's hepatitis now, because that was that issue in Washington. Or are we adding others? Are we taking some away? There's no public input. There's no legislative input. The outside medical organization is used as a consultant in the process. They may not always agree. Medicine is science, but it's also art. So oftentimes there's not agreement on how to proceed. So who ultimately decides? Is it the commissioner, him or herself? Is it going to be the people around the governor telling the commissioner what to do based on political considerations in Washington? Is it going to be media consensus, as it was during COVID when they told us without evidence that we had to be vaccinated to prevent spread? We had to distance 6 feet from one another. We had to wear masks. Our children couldn't go to school. And we joined it together for Thanksgiving with an arbitrary number of people. That was okay to send seniors back with COVID back in the nursing homes. The point is that people need and deserve to have trust and confidence in such important decisions being made by the department. And in our COVID experience, it would be a stretch for anyone to feel comfortable with this shift from national standard to the will and way of the department. So with regard to this shift, we need legislative oversight, we need public input, we need transparency and confidence that these decisions are evidence-based. We need to ensure that there are no conflicts of interest with regard to the outside organizations invited in the department. We need clear medical and religious exemptions. The most important thing we need is for our citizens to trust that the department is making decisions based on the right input and not political considerations. Therefore, for these reasons, among others, in the best interest of the health of our citizens, I vote no, and I urge my colleagues to do the same. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Assemblyman. Assemblyman Schoppenheimer.
Just want to clear, this is 61, 66.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. There are a number of major concerns in P 61, 66, namely issues of oversight, accountability, and informed consent. The number of entities with recommendations is unclear whose policies is in the event of different conclusions. Also, the laws still apply the same way of the expanding framework. New Jersey established its own vaccine injury compensation system. Local families will left without real recourse on purpose. Until these and other important questions are addressed, this bill should not be moved forward. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Assemblyman. Assemblywoman Fantasia.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in opposition to this bill. This bill fundamentally changes who controls vaccine policy in New Jersey. And it does it so in a way that gives authority away from the public, moves away from transparent national standards, and into a closed system inside the New Jersey Department of Health. I didn't know a lot about this when this bill landed on our agenda. So in my research, I found the following. Right now, New Jersey relies on the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, or ACIP, which is a national body that operates in the open, publishes data, informs the public, and it reports its votes. Its guidance is consistent across all states, and it's subject to federal transparency and oversight. That matters because vaccine policy touches everybody, every employer in the state as well. But this bill removes that safeguard, and it takes ACIP out of our law and gives sole authority to the New Jersey Department of Health, which allows the Department of Health to set vaccine requirements on its own or in coordination with public health groups that New Jersey voters cannot see, we can't speak to them, we can't hold them accountable. That's not a small technical change. This bill is actually an incredible transfer of power. The Department of Health is already partnering with Northeast Public Health Collaborative, which is a multi-state coalition that works on vaccine policy, disease surveillance. But that organization is not subject to oversight. Not subject to New Jersey courts, doesn't answer to us as New Jersey legislators. Yet under this bill, the Department of Health can rely on those regional recommendations and enforce them as binding policy on our residents. This does not work. This does not help for the property. That means decisions affecting our children, our workers, our families are made in rooms that the public's not allowed to enter. Maybe we aren't even allowed to enter as legislators. So this is a hypothetical. We just saw what happened when public health authority operates without transparency. So on December 19, 2025, just not quite a month ago, Public Health Council adopted major code changes under conditions that should concern every single person, regardless of party, in this chamber. Members of the public were locked out of part of the meeting because of a bad access link. Materials were missing, amendments were not properly circulated, even council members who claimed that they did receive full documentation in advance. That same council will be given expanded power under this bill. If that's how public health bullying is handled now, why would we give them more protective authority? Doesn't make any sense. ACIP gives us a nationally consistent, evidence-based, transparent framework. It does not prevent New Jersey from protecting public health. It ensures that those decisions are made in the open and accurate to a process that can be examined. It can be questioned by us. I can't imagine, why would we write a law that would keep us out of the room? Silly. This bill removes the anchor and replaces it with a system that is more insulated from scrutiny and more concentrated inside one agency. So parents are being asked to comply with mandates that affect their children. Our workers are being asked to comply with mandates that affect their livelihoods. The least we owe them is a process that's transparent, accountable, and grounded in standards they can see and are open to public record scrutiny. This bill moves us in the opposite direction. That reason, many others, can't support it.
Thank you. Assemblyman Trump.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. All right, I see about 20 of you on your cell phones right now, and I assume you're publishing your academic papers on virology since the president are clearly all experts right now and want to take away federal oversight from our health and human services department. Now, I didn't get the years of training that apparently all you guys did, so instead I touched myself by own research. I have my office reach out to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the CDC. And HHS and CDC gave extensive education on why they made their recent immunization changes. What stood out the most during the discussion was simply the unmatched expertise and manpower that they bring to the table. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services has around 62,000 employees, of which 12,000 are with the CDC, whereas the New Jersey Department of Health has only 5,000 employees, and we have nothing at all truly like the CDC. Now, not only that, but these federal bureaucrats at CDC and HHS are top-level experts, despite what we want to know. Most are globally renowned communicable disease experts or virologists. I'll give you some examples. Jeffrey Taubenberger, PhD, Acting Director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. This dude is the guy who was the first to actually sequence the genome of the 1918 influenza pandemic virus. Bernard Moss, PhD, Chief of Laboratory and Viral Diseases at NIAID. His expertise in pox viruses and viral pathogenesis. He developed vaccinia-based viral vectors used in vaccine technology. Julie Ledger, she's the Chief clinical trial program within NIAID. Her expertise is clinical vaccine trials, including Ebola, influenza, HIV, malaria, and other pathogens. At medicine, New Jersey has a tiny virology program in health environmental laboratory, which, as far as I can tell, is primarily limited to testing. It would be absurd to not lean on our federal partners who are significantly better equipped than we are. Additionally, the federal government just completed the most comprehensive, expert-driven review of childhood immunizations in decades. This review was conducted by scientists, CDC, FDA, NIH, and CMS, the top public health and epidemiology experts on the planet. These experts concluded that the previous U.S. schedule was an international outlier, far more shots in the U.S. for far more diseases than our peer nations across the globe. In 2024, U.S. children were receiving 84 to 88 doses for 17 different diseases plus RSV, which was more than any other nation in the world. Denmark, by comparison, vaccinated for only 10 diseases with only 30 doses and achieved extremely high uptake without any antibodies. The CDC is still recommending that all children get vaccinated against diphtheria, whooping cough, HIV, pneumococcal conjugate, polio, measles, mumps, rubella, and HPV, for which there is international consensus as well as chickenpox. But there are a litany of vaccines that were dropped recently, and for good reason. Here are just three. Hepatitis A was dropped. The U.S. incidence of hepatitis A last year, 1 per 100,000 people. Mortality score is 1 per 10 million. Mostly older men, not children. 0 deaths in New Jersey this past year. Coronavirus, pre-vaccine mortality in the U.S., 3.3 deaths per year among all children under 15. Post-vaccine mortality, 1.6 deaths per year. 0 deaths in New Jersey this past year. And look, we like to give up all the statistics to show how validated all that was. I'm more than happy to. But the bottom line is simple. Your guys' Trump derangement syndrome is simply making you unable to accept anything positive that the president's administration does. This bill is attacking the federal experts, not because of science, but because you cannot accept that President Trump and RFK Jr. directed this review and that the science supports their position. Don't let your own pride hurt the children of New Jersey. Thank you.
I would love us to have a forum and not have a name call. Let's go with the Senator Peterson.
Well,
Thank
on the motion,
Thank you.
I'm perfect. On the motion. I'm perfect. I'm not going to reiterate everything you said here today so far. I agree with all of you. What I'd like to speak to is the Health Committee Commissioner team, Commissioner Health Department team. Basically, his testimony was that the CDC is dead and using, quote, pseudoscience, and that we should empower the Department of Health to make these very important health decisions, which will impact every child in New Jersey. And I asked the commissioner why we should trust them with this magnitude of a health issue after the state department thought it was wise, thought it was good decision making to put COVID infected people in the nursing homes instead of President Trump's mercy ships and field hospitals. And that resulted in 8,000 New Jerseyans dying. 8,000 died. We went on a 20-year war for 3,000 people. 8,000 people died. And I don't trust them to make any kind of decision for me or for my family, quite frankly, for anybody, because they haven't earned that trust.
He couldn't explain why we should trust him now after such a horrendous decision was made by these folks. Additionally, what he didn't speak about a little bit, he didn't tell us how he was going to make these decisions. He didn't tell us how he was going to come up, other than to state that he was going to look at different medical associations and determine from there what to do. I just want to remind everybody that some of those medical associations that he referred to in his testimony have stated that men can get pregnant. Want to talk about pseudoscience? That's pseudoscience. Now, that being said, I don't know why we're doing this. I don't know what we want to do this for. There's two more things that I have a problem with transferring this decision-making to the Department of Health. It's been my experience, just from observation, that many department heads, when their time is up, they end up going and working for the very people that they regulated while they were here. How will anyone in New Jersey trust that the decision makers on the vaccine schedule won't end up at some pharmaceutical, won't have made the decision, get a good job with a pharmaceutical after they're done their time here as a commissioner or senior level decision maker? I have no trust. And then finally, during the committee hearing, there was testimony about whether vaccines that were on the New Jersey vaccine schedule, but not on the CDC vaccine schedule, would be covered under the Vaccine Injury Fund. Now, that's a fund that if you have an injury from receiving a vaccine, it compensates you, especially for the medical care that comes with it. And we did a lookup of it. And reading from the website of the government agency that provides this vaccine injury fund, it states very clearly that it only covers the vaccines that are on the CDC schedule. So you are going to allow the commissioner to put vaccines on schedule that children will have to take. And if they have a vaccine injury, there will be no financial recourse for that fact. That's a big risk to ask people to take. This bill was poorly thought out. It was reactionary. It was political. And quite honestly, everyone should vote no. Everyone should vote no on this bill. Because it's not about science. It's not political science. Vote no.
Assemblyman Run.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do rise in opposition to this bill, Madam Speaker. I believe that finally we are, in fact, addressing the health, safety, and welfare of our population. This, perhaps, more than any other bill on our agenda today, is of great significance. I believe you're doing a severe disservice to all of our residents by rushing through on the last day of the legislation. And as stated by all the speakers before me, Madam Speaker, change the Federal Advisory Committee on Vaccines and Immunizations practices in the State Department of Health with respect to the matters in which we choose to immunize our children. And the rising generation of New Jerseyans does not deserve to be moved so quickly. I do not receive satisfactory answers to the Commissioner of Health 28 years before us. By the time Dr. Ezra raised the question, he had left the room. Apparently, it wasn't the subsequent to the State Department of Health that it warranted full exploration by our committee. Regardless, Madam Speaker, the United States has a population of 350 million individuals. The state of New Jersey, depending upon county is around 9.7, 9.8 million. There's a reason that vaccine information and vaccine schedules are centralized into the federal government. People are transient. You keep hearing these stories about people moving out of the state. The fact of the matter is people also move into the state. It's a very transient population. And having state regulate their own immunization practices is simply a poor example. Rose said, we are taking what is one of the most serious decisions that we potentially could make as a legislature, and we are making it political. It is truly a decision that should not be political, but we're the ones politicizing it because surgery within the state of New Jersey perhaps no longer trust the federal government when it comes to vaccine practices. More than anything else, what consideration of this bill does is it further erodes the public trust in vaccines. And that perhaps, more than anything else, is the worst thing that can happen. And that is exactly what is happening with this bill, Madam Speaker. I intend to vote no on this first reading.
Thank you, Assemblyman. Madam Clerk, roll the machine for a vote. All reported who wish to be reported properly reported. Madam Clerk, close the machine and take a tally.
Madam Speaker, Senate Bill 48 reports to be on the affirmative, 21 negative, and 0 abstentions.
Senate Bill 4894, 4727, having received 51 votes in the affirmative, 24 votes in the negative, and 0 abstentions. I declare that it passed. This bill take the usual course of past bills. Bill on the clerk's desk.
Motion by majority of the law. Resolved that the Senate will become 20, the Senate Bill 541, and so the Senate Bill 66. Which is identical. I already agree on for my time for Senate Bill 5028.
Assemblywoman Keyham. Move substitution. Assemblywoman Keyham moves substitution. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed say nay. So moved, Madam Clerk.
135 Act Senate Bill 21, and then 58 for the 26 annual appropriation bill. So the A authorized use of grant funding for the Centenary Year.
Assemblywoman Keyham. I move the bill. Thank you, Assemblywoman Keyham moves the bill. Madam Clerk, open the machine for a vote. Are all recorded who wish to be recorded properly reported? Madam Clerk, close the machine and take a tally.
Madam Speaker, Senate Bill 21, 74 votes in affirmative, 0 negative.
Senate Bill 521, having received 74 votes in the affirmative, 0 votes in the negative, and 0 abstentions, I declare this bill passed. The bills take the usual course of past bills. Bill on the clerk's desk.
Motion by Assemblywoman. Resolved that Assemblywoman 51 from the Senate Bill 29, substitute for Senate Bill 12 by Senate. And then Senate Bill 5 for Senate Bill 39.
Assemblyman Sweetie. Assemblyman Sweetie moves the bill, moves the substitution. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed say nay. So moved, Madam Clerk.
On third and final passage, Senate Bill 39,
Assemblyman Sawicki. Assemblyman Sawicki moves the bill. Madam Clerk, open the machine for a vote. Are all recorded who wish to be recorded properly recorded? Madam Clerk, close the machine and take a tally.
Madam Speaker, Senate Bill 39, 72, and negative 0.
Senate Bill 3906 having received 73 votes in the affirmative, 1 vote in the negative, and 0 abstentions, I declare the bill passed. And the bill taking the due course of past bills. Bill on the clerk's desk.
Motion by Chairman Barnes, adopt that Senate Bill 54 and Senate Bill 3447, for Senate Bill 4667 on the bill. And then Chairman Barnes, provide possible Senate Bill 3447.
Assemblyman Vargas. Assemblyman Vargas moves the substitution. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed say nay. So moved, Madam Clerk.
On third and final passage, Senate Bill 3447, establishing special education transportation tax.
Assemblyman Vargas.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Assemblyman Vargas moves the bill. Madam Clerk, open the machine. Are all recorded who wish to be recorded properly recorded? Madam Clerk, close the machine and take a tally.
Madam Speaker, Senate Bill 3447, 75, 0 negative, and 0 abstentions.
Senate Bill 3447 having received 75 votes in the affirmative, 0 votes in the negative, and 0 abstentions, I declare the bill passed. The bill taking the courts of past bills. Bill on the clerk's desk.
I will find an amendment to Senate Bill 4572, filed by Senator allow states and municipalities, counties, to implement automatic changes for
Assemblywoman Gilly.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Rule 15:21, I move the concurrence.
Assemblywoman Gilly moves the concurrence. Madam Clerk, please open the machine for a vote. Are all recorded who wish to be recorded properly recorded? Madam Clerk, close the machine and take the tally.
Madam Speaker, it's going to be about 68.
Assembly Bill 4562 having received 68 votes in the affirmative, 7 votes in the negative, and 0 abstentions, I declare the bill passed. The bill taking the usual course of past bills. Bill on the clerk's desk.
On third and final passage, Senate Bill 4628, sponsored by Vice President Hutchinson, Allen, and the Holy. President Senator Shepherd, continuing to include minor citizens, the treatment of black storage systems.
Assemblyman Hutchinson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Assemblyman Hutchinson moves the bill. Madam Clerk, open the machine for a vote. Are all recorded who wish to be recorded properly recorded? Madam Clerk, close the machine and take the tally.
Madam Speaker, Senate Bill 28, 74, affirmative, 0 negative, 5.
Assembly Bill 4628 having received 70 votes in the affirmative, 0 votes in the negative, and 5 abstentions, I declare the bill passed. And the bill taking the course of past bills. Bill on the clerk's desk.
The Director Senate Amendment to Senate Bill 4760, sponsored by Vice President Hutchinson and Senator Johnson, Senate President Barr. Expand every reporting requirement to entities that report or contract with individuals for financial compensation.
Assemblywoman Murphy. Assemblywoman Murphy moves the concurrence. Madam Clerk, please open the machine for a vote. Are all recorded who wish to be recorded properly recorded? Madam Clerk, close the machine and take the tally.
Casi estamos punto a la votación. We're almost at the vote. Please stand by.
Assembly Bill 4750 having received 53 votes in the affirmative, 20 votes in the negative, and 0 abstentions, I declare the bill passed. Let the bill take its full course to pass. Bill on the clerk's desk.
On concurrent consent amendment to Senate Bill 5017, sponsored by Alderman Senator Clark, Miller, and Senator Curtis. That certain personal information and entities which serve requirements concerning notification and disclosure of personal information.
Assemblywoman Parker.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Rule 1521, I move to concurrence.
Assemblywoman Parker moves for concurrence. Madam Clerk, please open the machine for vote. Are all recorded who wish to be recorded properly recorded? Madam Clerk, close the machine, take the tallies.
Madam Speaker, for Senate Bill 5017, 275 was affirmative, and negative zero.
Assembly Bill 5017 having received 75 votes in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, I declare the bill passed. The bill taking the course of past bills. Bill on the vote desk.
With the revised passage of Senate Bill 5160, sponsored by Vice President Jackson,
Borelli and Farmer.
for a transfer of certificates of these ERPs deferred.
Assemblywoman Rose Jackson. Assemblywoman Rose Jackson moves the bill. Madam Clerk, let's open the machine for vote. Are all recorded who wish to be recorded properly recorded? Madam Clerk, close the machine, take the tally.
Madam Speaker, Senate Bill 5160, majority 12 and negative 1 abstention.
Assembly Bill 5160 having received 56 votes in the affirmative, 12 votes in the negative, 1 abstention, I declare the bill passed. I bill taking its course of past bills. Bill on the clerk's desk.
On concurrence consent amendment, the Senate Committee substitute for Senate Bill 5195, 23, sponsored by President Chair, Hall, California, and China for the producer of certain training, minor training, containing peripheral and polyphenol substances provided to the group.
Assemblyman Miller. Assemblyman Miller moves the concurrence. Madam Clerk, please open the machine for a vote. Are all recorded who wish to be recorded? Properly recorded. Madam Clerk, close the machine, take the tally.
Madam Speaker, Senate Bill 5195, 66, 0 and negative, and 9 abstentions.
Assembly Bill 5195 having received 66 votes in the affirmative, 0 votes in the negative, and 9 abstentions, I declare the bill passed. The bill to the usual course of passage. Thank you, everyone.
Ok, ya estamos a punto de la votación histórica aquí en la Asamblea. Ya estamos a punto de la votación para este paquete de leyes, un paquete de leyes a favor de nuestra comunidad inmigrante. Aquí estamos y no nos vamos. Estamos en la Asamblea de Nueva Jersey, la capital, y ya estamos a punto de escuchar cómo van a votar la Asamblea. Ya estamos aquí, ¿ok? Ya estamos escuchando la votación en la primera de 3 propuestas de leyes que pueden proteger nuestra comunidad.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If I may. So, no one deserves to hear, but right now, people across New Jersey and around the country are afraid to take their children to school, to seek medical care in hospitals, or just step outside their house. While we cannot solve this on our own, we have a duty to the residents of New Jersey to do all that we can to protect them. The Safe Communities Act set meaningful boundaries to keep ICE out of sensitive places. Armed, masked, untrained law enforcement have no business within our schools, hospitals, or place of worship. When they come into a school or a church or a hospital, they are putting everyone in that space in
Esta asamblista está hablando a favor de nuestra comunidad migrante. Escuchen, por favor.
We heard hours of testimony from individuals directed, impacted by these atrocities. It was heartbreaking to hear of children whose parents were taken from them and families that were torn apart. I don't know if you guys heard, but yesterday there was a raid in Morristown where a laundromat was raided and 10 residents were picked up, one being a high school senior in Morristown High School. We must protect our citizens, our residents. There is station field solace in places like school, hospitals where they need essential needs, as well as places of worship. You know, I myself was an immigrant, came here in 1978 at the age of 6, and never in a million years did I ever think that we would be in a place like this today. It really breaks my heart because I feel that my family has achieved the American dream. We all received, myself and my sister received a great education here to become professionals. That's what led me to become a legislator, is to provide others with opportunities of the American dream. And for us to be in the state that we are right now, across the country, we as Jerseyans must protect our own. So I really hope that everyone votes yes on this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I move the bill.
Senator Parks moves the bill. Senator Kennedy. This is actually a pretty great detail. We're making laws that establish boundaries that legally can't be crossed. But to be honest, it does sound vaguely familiar. In fact, it reminds me of something similar called a national border. I hope you guys can see the irony here. You want boundaries that legally can't be crossed to protect criminal aliens who couldn't respect our legal borders themselves. Illegal that didn't respect our nation's boundaries and borders are now in need of protection from the repercussions of their own illegal actions. This is ridiculous.
Este asamblista republicano está hablando en contra de nuestra comunidad inmigrante. Escúchenlo, recuerdan su nombre cuando le toca su elección de nuevo.
You may not. So let's instead focus on the portion of this bill that calls for public posting of information to protect the legal. Now, literally flyers that need to be posted on websites to protect. I have some alternative suggestions. I found one of the flyers that is potentially being used already by the state. And now the federal government has a program. And this program offers $1,000 for each eligible individual and a one-way ticket back to their legal country of origin. Leaving this vital information off of the flyer would be an injustice. So I've knocked up my own version for you with that information front and center right here. I hope you can see it, $1,000 and free ride home. Now, since most illegals subjected their children to human traffickers and drug cartels as they made the journey across dangerous deserts and rivers, we should give them a safe option to return home. It's the right thing to do. To help facilitate this, I'd like to amend this legislation to include components of my Unifying Families, Bringing Them Home Act. I move to return this bill to second reading for the purpose of said amendment.
Un señor republicano desgraciado hablando en contra de nuestra comunidad migrante.
Bill second. All in favor of the motion table, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Madam Clerk, please open the machine for a vote on the motion to table. Madam Clerk, please open the machine for that.
Mr. Speaker, motion to table and proceed for each motion to refer 24 negative, zero abstention.
Motion to table. Senator Moreno.
I would just like to shed light on something that Senator Parks said. And I'm trying to say that you won't stop Spanish is my first language. She said something during her speech that was very important. She said, we need to do our best to protect our citizens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Since this is part of a suite of 3 bills, I will stick to this specific bill. It's A6308. I entitled this Sanctuary. It designates large portions of New Jersey as immigration enforcement-free zones that includes hospitals, schools, shelters, courthouses, prisons, and other public facilities are placed off limits for federal immigration officers, and state and local law enforcement are barred from assisting them in those locations. And here's why that matters. Those are the exact places where people who are already in the justice system pass through. Defendants appear in courthouses. Detainees are held in jails. Records are created in hospitals and schools. This bill cuts off cooperation in the various spaces where enforcement would normally happen. We're told this is about making families feel safe, and that, as the Assemblywoman said, we as New Jerseyans must protect our own. However, the bill before us shows that thousands of people have already been arrested in New Jersey by federal authorities. Those are individuals who are already identified and already in the system, and this bill makes it harder for us to locate them, harder to detain them, and harder to remove them. We've already seen what happens when that system fails. Some of you might know an example of what just happened. In Lakewood, an undocumented drunk driver killed the mother and her 11-year-old daughter.
Otra republicana en contra de nuestra comunidad migrante. Escúchenla, recuerden su nombre, está en contra de la comunidad migrante.
Creates blind spots that benefit people who are already being sought by federal law enforcement. That's a choice. It carries consequences. And when you create a sanctuary, where do you think criminals are going to go? Do you go to the non-sanctuary places? No. They're going to hide out in hospitals. They're going to hide out in shelters. They're going to hide out knowing that they are safe there to the very places that victims, either here legally or illegally, victims in the United States and in the state of New Jersey go to for their own sanctuary. So dare I say we are not protecting our own.
Otra republicana anti-inmigrante hablando en contra de nuestra comunidad inmigrante. Another Republican lawmaker speaking against our immigrant community. Remember her name. Ya estamos votando. Ese va a ser un voto histórico.
Mr. Speaker, Senate Bill 6308, 8 has 48 votes affirmative, 23 in the negative.
Assembly Bill 6308 has received 48.
Pasó, gracias a Dios. El primero de 3 leyes pasó y está aprobada. Ahora nos toca el segundo de 3 leyes. Ahorita vamos a hablar sobre el segundo de los 3 leyes. El más importante es al final, el número 3, pero ahorita estamos al segundo. And now we're talking about the second. Yeah.
Also,
está hablando es la que patrocinó la ley, el paquete de leyes a favor de nuestra comunidad inmigrante.
Speaker Pro Tem Keanu moves the bill. Assemblyman Tradition. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I genuinely think let's pull this bill starting off.
Otra vez el asambleísta republicano está hablando en contra de nuestra comunidad inmigrante. Otra vez tenemos un republicano anti-inmigrante hablando en contra de esa propuesta, en contra de la comunidad inmigrante. Recuerden su cara.
Then, a federal task force obtained a judicial warrant compelling the New Jersey agency to disclose the LPR data tied to the suspect vehicle. Under this bill, once the New Jersey agency discloses the ALPR data, they must notify the suspect. They have to literally notify the suspect that their ALPR data was disclosed to whom.
Otro republicano hablando en contra de nuestra comunidad. Imagínate cómo hablan de nuestra comunidad inmigrante en la capital estatal de Nueva Jersey.
The suspect is obviously going to switch vehicles, use stolen plates, or alter their travel patterns. This must be the most genius thing I've seen in my 2 years in the legislature. I genuinely am asking if you guys really even read this.
Así es, todo está en las manos de Dios y en el pueblo. Tenemos el pueblo presente aquí, varias organizaciones que han tomado años de su vida para este momento.
To disclose any record or information collected pursuant to the provisions of this Act, or any automated license plate reader information, shall provide notice to the person to whom the record or information pertains regarding the disclosure. The notice shall set forth the 1, specific record or information subject to disclosure, 2, party to which the record or information was disclosed, and 3, basis for disclosing the information. This bill is immediately dangerous to the public of New Jersey on day 1. The headline writes itself, Democrats could tip off criminals. I know you haven't lost a political in like 20 years, Mr. Speaker, but maybe you might want to call a recess or something to pull this one. But since you guys probably won't do that, it's best to track this entire embarrassment and consider something that actually defends the public. What we need is a law that requires state entities that provide government benefit to inquire and record the citizenship or immigration status of those receiving it and report back the bringing cost of illegal aliens to this great state. We'll call it a public charge transparency act, if you will. Therefore, I move for substitution of Assembly Bill 6309 for Assembly Bill 5947. You are destroying this state. Wake up.
Desgraciado, otro republicano en contra de nuestra comunidad inmigrante. No les gusta usar tan palabras fuertes, pero así podemos caracterizar este asambleísta que habló en contra de nuestra comunidad inmigrante.
All those in favor of the motion table, signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Madam Clerk, please open the machine for the vote.
Ya estamos a punto de otra votación para la segunda ley, la segunda propuesta que queremos pasar en Nueva Jersey. Ya estamos. Gracias a Dios. Se ve que sí vamos a pasar esta ley.
Motion to table, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So this is second.
Ya casi estamos a la votación para la segunda propuesta de este paquete de leyes. So, como ven, es la misma republicana que está hablando en nuestra contra otra vez.
And exposes agencies and hospitals to civil liability if it is released. In fact, it's straightforward.
Otra republicana, la misma republicana, está hablando en contra de nuestra comunidad inmigrante.
Prosecutors lose the ability to verify identities. Agencies lose the ability to know who's actually in their system. The background behind this bill makes it clear why it exists. It's meant to block Medicaid, tax, and benefit data from being shared with federal immigration authorities. But that reach goes far beyond immigration. It shuts down the flow of information that law enforcement relies on to address drug trafficking, human trafficking, drug trafficking, and serious crimes. When you combine
No somos criminales. Nuestra comunidad inmigrante está aquí para trabajar, para vivir con dignidad, para sus familias, sus hijos. Esta republicana hablando con tanto odio en su corazón. Aunque ella está hablando en nuestra contra, gracias a Dios contamos con el poder popular hoy, con varias organizaciones que han dedicado años de su vida para este momento.
No, you're wrong.
7:59.
Sorry, honey, you're wrong.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Bill 86-309, Privacy Protection Act. Title sounds like it's actually a step backwards from public safety. Bill prohibits state and local government entities, including government listening, collecting or sharing vital information regarding citizenship and immigration status. I create a legislative law that the flow of information between local and federal agencies would not protect the residents from blinding very people supposed to protect us. History can teach us valuable lessons. We have already paid any price for the wall we built between our agencies. Terrorist attacks.
Un nuevo republicano hablando en nuestra contra.
Where intelligence agencies operate, the way they share data. 9/11 Commission issued a definitive finding that a wall of separation between intelligence and law enforcement agencies was the primary factor in our inability to stop kidnapping. Information inside the left hand did not know what the right hand was doing. You must remember that was a 19 hijackers, several clear immigration violations. Specifically, 4 of the hijackers had overstayed their visas. They were in the country illegally.
Así es, señor Martín. Los criminales son ellos, los republicanos, que mataron a la activista, los agentes de inmigración. Esos son los verdaderos criminales, no nuestra clase trabajadora de inmigrantes, nuestras familias de inmigrantes que se dedican todo a sus hijos, a sus familias. Estamos a punto de votación para la segunda propuesta de leyes en este paquete que va a proteger nuestra comunidad anti-inmigrante. Por eso están tan enojados los republicanos en este momento.
Every single New Jersey counts. You want to prepare a safe New Jersey, every person feels the safety of the hospital or government. And that safety and information that we're let's reject this wall. Let's use a policy that encourages cooperation out of the legislature. This is one point that that's very key in our community.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
We're watching you, Caps.
Please, order in the camera and question everyone, please remain silent. And clerk, please go to the meeting.
Ya estamos a la votación. El republicano de Atlantic City, Tom Guardian, votó en contra de esta ley otra vez. Y pasó, gracias a Dios pasó. Tenemos que quedarnos un poquito callados. Estamos en la capital, pero ya estamos. Ahorita vamos a hablar sobre la tercera y la más importante propuesta de leyes esta tarde que tomó años para llegar a este momento. Esta ley es lo más importante. Después explicamos todo, pero ha tomado años llegar a este momento.
Let's be clear. ICE is civil law enforcement, not criminal law enforcement. ICE agents are not discerning between criminals and innocent people. They're not even discerning between citizens and non-citizens. They are picking up anyone who appears remotely other and threatening anyone who tries to speak up. As the Trump administration continues to weaponize ICE, these bills set boundaries and offer crucial protections to provide ICE with immigration, not to provide ICE with immigration information or assist detention. We will not use state resources that assist ICE. We will continue to do all that we can to ensure our residents feel safe in New Jersey. And with that, I conclude.
Everyone,
The bill before us, first time the Attorney General's directive on immigration says that, quote, state, county, and municipal law enforcement shall not provide the federal immigration authorities any following information of a person who is a resident. Address, telephone number, email address, credit card number, driver's license number, license plate number, insurance policy number, or social security number. So the police department is this individual who has committed or was about to commit a
Otro republicano hablando en nuestra contra, pero Dios está con el pueblo hoy.
In fact, it goes further and even prohibits the police department from sharing the individual's criminal history, specifically whether they have, quote, ever been convicted of a violent or serious offense. I am deeply troubled that state of New Jersey deliberately create information silos, prohibit information sharing between and among law enforcement agencies. There is very clear and very painful history for violence and wrong approach. The 9/11 Commission report, referenced earlier, says in Chapter 13, I have it here, the U.S. government has access to a vast amount of information on databases not usually thought of as intelligence, such as customs or immigration information on recruiting. The storehouse is connected. Unfortunately, the report goes on to say, law enforcement agencies had
Aunque este republicano anti-inmigrante está en nuestra contra, tenemos varios de nuestra organización, de nuestra coalición. Hay varias diferentes organizaciones aquí hoy que han luchado años para llegar a este momento. Ya gracias a Dios logramos pasar 2 de los 3 propuestas de leyes en este paquete. Y ahora estamos a punto de votar para la tercera y la más importante propuesta en este paquete. Después podemos explicarle más a nuestro pueblo, pero este momento nos ha costado años llegar a este momento.
learned a hard lesson after 9/11 that the commission report concluded that one of the biggest barriers was the lack of communication between government agencies and law enforcement at all levels. As the former mayor of the municipality who lost the most people to captive in New Jersey, these failures destroyed 37 families forever. AB 6310 is anti-law enforcement, anti-public safety, contrary to the strict enforcement of our laws, which should be paramount to our government. This bill ties the hands of law enforcement and prohibits communication between local, county, state, and federal branches. This is also another legislative attempt to further entrench the cost and status of New Jersey as a sanctuary state, costing taxpayers millions of dollars, jeopardizing the safety of every resident. I respectfully ask my colleagues to vote no on where the agencies can. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Kennedy.
All right, being crystal clear, this bill does not try to disrupt between law enforcement and immigrant communication. It does the exact opposite. It undermines public safety. It disrespects legal immigrants and codifies one of the most reckless policies ever imposed on the people of New Jersey. So let's start with something basic here. Language matters. These are not immigrants. These are illegal aliens. Do not lump them together. Every Asian, African, European, Latin American family who follow the law, waited their turn, filled out the paperwork, paid the fees, and became American in the right way, loves this state and loves this country. This bill is a slap in the face to all of them. It tells them their sacrifice and their patience and their law-abiding approach makes nothing. Much like the effort to rewrite reality by those white women birthing first, you're not fooling anyone by changing words. Calling illegal immigrants or migrants does not change the underlying fact. They are here in violation of our laws. And to the Assemblyman, yes, this is a crime. Under federal law, Section 8 U.S.C. 1325, first illegal entry into the United States is a federal misdemeanor, and a repeated entry is a felony. Stop calling everything civil. It's not. Misdemeanor crimes at the state level include sexual assault, domestic violence offenses, animal cruelty, stalking, and elder abuse. Make no mistakes, these are serious crimes.
Si pueden ver a este americano al lado de que está hablando, los que se están conectando con el pueblo unido de Atlantic City, el señor acá, el blanquito.
This bill codifies a directive issued by a Democratic governor's appointee, confirmed by a Democratic-controlled Senate, and it represents the worst public safety policy. Really, all this bill does is help keep human traffickers I learned about in my 2000.
Este señor acá, el blanquito, se llama al lado de acá. Se llama el asambleísta Don Guardian y él es el que está representando a Atlantic City en esta votación hoy en este día. El que tiene el pelón que está al lado del que está hablando está representando Atlantic City hoy en este día, en esta votación. Vamos a ver cómo él vota para esta propuesta de ley para ayudar a nuestra comunidad inmigrante. Él es un republicano, entonces tenemos que analizar cómo está votando hoy. Se llama el asambleísta Don Guardian, que antes era el alcalde de Atlantic City y ahora es un representante a nivel estatal para Atlantic City y el condado de Atlantic. Tenemos que analizar cómo está votando hoy en este día. Vamos a ver.
They were headed to New Jersey for all the free benefits we give out. First is free public education. People skip the line or overstay visas, and New Jersey taxpayers are forced to foot the bill for their education and their children's education. Meanwhile, working families in Tom's River, Brick, and across the state are being crushed by directive, and now this bill, makes New Jersey a sanctuary for people who have already shown they're willing to break the law. And here's some other programs worth mentioning. Annual medical coverage for illegal aliens, $15.5 million. Legal services where we pay to help foreigners fight their own deportations, $15.7 million a year. Annual emergency medical services for illegal aliens, $34 million. And now it's time to be more honest up front. Because according to the data that I discussed in the fall, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security 2 days ago, illegal aliens commit homicide at more than twice the rate of legal immigrants. Illegal aliens have double the incarceration rate of legal immigrants. And second-generation effects are ignored. Now, you may be shocked, I'm sure across the aisle, everyone tells you illegals commit less crime, right? Well, in New Jersey, the combination of the Attorney General's law enforcement directive and the state bail reform law have fundamentally changed how crimes are even identified, charged, and resolved. Excuse everything. When police are prohibited from inquiring into or sharing immigration status, and defendants are routinely released from trial, prosecutors are incentivized to move cases quickly for plea deal and diversion rather than actually pursuing full prosecution. This environment, reinforced by the gubernatorial appointments of county prosecutors who share the administration's policy priorities, results in fewer indictable charges, more downgraded offenses, and reduced detention even for repeat offenders. The practical effect is that serious conduct often doesn't even fully appear in our statewide crimes or recidivism statistics. As a result, New Jersey's official data increasingly reflects prosecutors' bias and policy choices rather than the true scope of criminal and illegal behavior. This in turn makes meaningful public safety analysis almost impossible, and it undermines and understates.
Mira cómo habla este republicano antimigrante en nuestra contra.
Right here. This is an example of some of the fine, upstanding citizens that luckily I can deal with pain, despite all the barriers working against them in New Jersey. These are not people volunteering to church. This is directly on the bill. This is about influence.
I'm making sure you spend a lot of time on
Let him show his poster. Shame. Shame on you.
What's the problem with this?
I believe, Mr. Speaker, that showing examples of some of the crimes committed by the few people that ICE was actually able to detain, despite our AD's directive and the purpose of this bill that would encourage more of it, is directly responsible for this piece of legislation.
I don't think it's that stuff. So, get back to it. No, it's not.
Point of order.
No.
I'm just going to talk anything. The same from Honduras was convicted of sexual assault of a child in North County. Anthony from the Philippines, he had sexually assaulted a child in Somerset County. Juan from Mexico.
Senator, you're out. Right.
I'll move this down here. I'll make your thoughts on my time.
Let's get to this point of view. No.
Oh my goodness.
Well, here's the most important thing, Mr. Speaker. When they come across the border, we don't even know who they are. Most of them ditch their passports and their IDs.
But why are you talking about this? There's a bill on the table. Focus on it. Focus on the bill on that.
We don't know the true criminal histories of the people that are in this state. We don't know it because we don't even know who they are. We don't even know who they are. My officers in front of the people. I was mayor people that basically the first time you get arrested, whatever name you tell them, Mr. Speaker, is what they go by for subsequent arrest. So this is directly responsible. Right here in Ocean County, Lake New Jersey, my county, Mr. Speaker, we had a repeat offender who had two different convictions for driving intoxicated. And then he killed a legal immigrant and a child. That was horrendous. And horrendous that we continue to allow this to happen time and time again. Here's the truth, and I'll tell right from the chase. Every illegal alien in this state needs to go home. majority of New Jerseyans want that too. A Stockton poll found that roughly 60% of New Jerseyans support federal deportation. You're voting against the will of people in these bills. My constituents are breaking their backs to follow the rules, pay their taxes, raise families, and this legislature is telling them criminals come first, this is wrong, vote no, send everybody back.
Assemblywoman,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So this is the third in the bills we heard today. This one is the blindfold. This is taking the Attorney General's Senator Trust Directive and locking it into statute. So I have a little bit of experience with the Immigrant Trust Directive and the prior Attorney General. In 2019, Sussex County actually put a referendum question on the ballot to ask if the Sussex County Criminal Board at the time was able to cooperate and provide resources to federal authorities who are investigating crimes in the county who may be suspected of being here illegally. We went back and forth with the Attorney General's office, Attorney General Paul at the time. Lots of contention there. But at the end of the day, the ballot question did hit the ballot in the 2019 general election. It came back in Sussex County 2-1. It was 67% of the residents voted yes, about 22,000 yeses to 10,000 no's. Now, why does this matter? You know how this type of bill about non-cooperation actually plays out in real life. What's on that in Sussex County? What propelled us forward? Well, in 2019, a man by the name of Fernando Diaz, a 38-year-old man in Newton, New Jersey, was arrested and charged with second-degree sexual assault of a minor, third-degree endangering the welfare of a child, and multiple counts of contempt for violating restraining order. So the judge issued a temporary restraining order. Diaz was spent the night in jail. He was released at 2 p.m. You're not going to believe this. 2 hours later, the police were called to the victim's home, and they found this guy hiding in the basement inside a shelving unit, while the child, who was the alleged victim, was in the house. Federal ICE issued a detainer on Diaz, so agents could take him into custody and determine whether he should be deported or not. And that federal intervention is what ultimately prevented him from remaining at large and continuing to engage in that family. So think about that. If Sussex County, if our Sheriff's Department said, no, we are not cooperating, let's get thrown back in. And here's the joke of the whole thing.
Otra republicana anti-inmigrante hablando en nuestra contra, hablando de cosas que no le pertenecen a esta legislación, de esta propuesta, pero como son republicanos anti-inmigrantes, quieren vernos ver mal, quieren hablar con su odio, pero hoy se trata de amor, amor para nuestra comunidad inmigrante, amor para nuestra clase trabajadora que llegaron a este país a luchar para sus familias, sus hijos. Entonces, aunque esta republicana está hablando con odio, no la vamos a tomar en cuenta porque hoy vamos a ganar, vamos a pasar esta importante propuesta de ley a nivel estatal. Ya que esta republicana termina de hablar su odio, vamos a tener la votación para algo histórico aquí en Nueva Jersey. Como lo hemos dicho antes, hoy Dios está con el pueblo. Hoy luchamos contra este sistema injusto aquí en Nueva Jersey.
Area of government
Ahorita van a votar para aprobar esta propuesta de ley. En unos minutos van a votar en contra o a favor de esta propuesta. Entonces, ahorita les toca a todos los políticos de Nueva Jersey dar su opinión, su testimonio, pero ahorita vamos a votar para esta ley, esta propuesta de ley histórica. Pero como ven, los republicanos les gusta hablar en contra de nuestra comunidad inmigrante cada oportunidad que tienen. El que está hablando también es un republicano, y si pueden ver atrás de él, en la última fila, es el asambleísta Tom Guardian, que hoy representa el condado de Atlantic, la ciudad de Atlantic City. Él también es un republicano. Entonces ahorita vamos a analizar cómo va a votar el asambleísta Tom Guardian, que antes era el alcalde de Atlantic City y ahora es un representante a nivel estatal para la ciudad de Atlantic City, el condado de Atlantic. Vamos a ver si hoy, esta tarde, Tom Guardian está con el pueblo.
Budget larger than the FBI, double that of the Coast Guard. They spend more in a single week than the New Jersey State Police do an entire year. And now that's the resources they will. But this is provided testimony to the corporations from the last week, stating that ICE is more active in our state than ever before. Yes, this is welcome news. Immigration enforcement officers must be engaged. We've had very similar studies that have today, 1 million workload massive. Local police get helped by some target by high level of those dangerous offenders. And there's so much about some Asian you find them, you can help them. But what happens is we now have this wall where you can't. So the Immigrant Trust Directive makes it almost impossible. Local police chiefs can be the ones who determine if their departments have the time and then hours to work with us, other outside agencies. Not check their requests. We're clearly more concerned with protecting the legal values. When we drive our state highways, we see the DOT signs in New Jersey. They're often lit up with messages like, don't give up class, or, please drive slow. Funny stuff, agencies are covered. But perhaps we should use those signs no worse than a real message. There are consequences for being in this country illegally. Or maybe let some people know that they may have maybe get back here some way the right way. I'm limited work around this offered by the companies right now. But I do not expect to see the best because of the concept. This bill sends a signal to the nation and the world that New Jersey is not serious about the rule of law. Tells our citizens they are second-class residents in their own state. It's time to stop prioritizing those who rule our laws over those who follow. Are you ready to stand up in New Jersey? Vote no on this lawless directive.
Thank you. Senator Flynn.
These bills that I don't talk about the procedure, because I don't think going forward, the way these bills went through the process was program. Friday afternoon, we got the list of the Judiciary Assembly Committee of what bills were to consider. It's surprising to know that these two bills that this time to hire were out there, they weren't. And so we were out to the organization, more than 2 council members, and another day. As I was driving home, I found a note from one of the staffers that personally stopped and said, thank you to all the staffers who work here in the assembly.
Ahorita esta republicana anti-inmigrante está hablando sobre cómo nosotros como organizadores en alianza con el liderazgo de la Asamblea, de una manera muy rápida, casi de emergencia, logramos poner esas 3 propuestas, 2 que ya estaban aprobadas y esta que ahorita nos toca la votación. Todo eso empezó el viernes pasado. Son menos de 2 semanas después de años de organización, después de años de organizar nuestra comunidad, logramos poner estas propuestas para un voto en la Asamblea, un comité de la Asamblea y un comité del Senado. Eso fue la semana pasada, el lunes en la Asamblea y el jueves pasado en el Senado. Y ahora nos toca el voto general con toda la Asamblea y todo el Senado. Son menos de 2 semanas, gracias a Dios, gracias al poder popular, logramos poner esas propuestas de leyes para una votación en general aquí en la capital de Nueva Jersey. Debido a todo lo que está pasando a nivel federal, con esos agentes de inmigración, con las ciudades públicas, por eso se está moviendo todo, porque nos organizamos, porque estamos todos unidos hoy, pero los republicanos están enojados que nos hemos organizado tanto aquí en Nueva Jersey. Y esta asambleísta republicana sigue hablando con odio en nuestra contra. Pero hoy no la vamos a escuchar. Hoy Dios está con el pueblo.
This particular person, and not only because they express the DUI, but also justified in resident. Nothing was done because of this type of record that's tied against one person in practice. There was one other that I think would be important. I think it's imperative our responsibility still to consider and reach out to affirmatively before they put in penalties. And that was some of the families like Senator Strasburg mentioned. He was the mayor in the post-9/11 world. He had to go and talk to all these families that had to deal with it. Their cars being left in the parking lot and no one coming home. Every single year, Jerry and I and all the monitoring officials, we go up to a 9/11 first thing in the morning and recreate because we go right through the timeline of that morning. And it's devastating. Devastating. And that's because one person was blind at the 7 minutes. We've already talked about this. They were blind because one person, all the different agencies were not talking to each other to know there was a threat. So, Mr. Speaker, I think we should pause on this bill. I think it's something we can do. Like National President did say 15 to 1. Send it back. Do something that is responsive to the concerns of the community. This is not anecdotal, that was from 1922. This is real facts. We have a bipartisan report that said this is what we're not supposed to do.
Dice esta asambleísta republicana que no deberíamos votar en esta propuesta de ley hoy. Imagínate, después de años de organizarnos, dicen que no merecemos estas protecciones que queremos hoy. Entonces, mira cómo hablan de nosotros. Miran cómo hablan con tanto odio en sus corazones. Por eso, como pueblo latino, pueblo inmigrante, deberíamos organizarnos más y más cada día para luchar en contra de este tipo de odio. otro republicano antimigrante.
It's the chair's interpretation,
You missed it.
the questions from, the question, the word, my interpretation of the rule is that the debate is on the subject matter. The question is,
Well, I did hear Mr. Speaker. You were heard from some verbiage, LOLS, legal decision on that, which contradicts your statement there. So
I have a great regard for OLS, but it's the chair's ruling that I am not.
well, we all know, at least on this side of the aisle, that when the rules don't fit your narrative, change it. Which we're doing today with all these immigration bills. Let's face it, the truth of the matter is, what you're doing is, with this bill and the prior two bills, you're protecting criminals. Our country has a border, our country has immigration laws, and we break those laws, they're criminal. And criminals should be afraid. They should be afraid. Because criminals should be afraid of law enforcement. And ICE is law enforcement, whether you like it or not, and they have the power to detain on probable cause. They don't need a warrant, they can detain on probable cause. That's the law. You don't have to like it, but that's the law. And if you don't follow it, you're going to direct federal law enforcement, not in any way support other law enforcement. Federal law enforcement is duly authorized. A lot of local people, and as some of the teachers pointed out, the majority of the citizens of New Jersey. And I find this appalling that we refuse to protect criminals. Criminals who should be picked up by ICE. Criminals who should be sent back to their homes. Criminals who bear a tremendous financial burden on our state. $7 billion. $7 billion. Think about that money to do. We can help our veterans who suffer from PTSD, our veterans who have all kinds of mental health issues and don't provide the resources for them. How about our seniors? How about we help them out a little bit instead of criminals? How about we help out our school kids who are struggling to meet the probationary standards set for their education? Our kids are doing lousy. Our schools are doing lousy. That $7 billion would go a long way, especially in a place like Palm River, who's been decimated, and Lacey Township, for that matter, who's been decimated by this legislature in the way that school funding is done. No, what we do is we spend that money on criminals. Criminals should be deported back to their home country. Their home country. This is their home. This is the place that they come and create a burden on the taxpayers. It needs to come to an end. They need to go home. We need to stop protecting them. So today, so far, and I don't know, we might get to another bill that will, that I'm curious about how it will come down. But today, so far, the majority party has enriched the oligarchs, which is just fascinating. And then, so far, the bill, by this one too, they will protect criminals at the expense of the citizens of New Jersey. This bill is bad. Those who are bad, please come to an end. You need to stop protecting criminals. You need to start thinking about the citizens of New Jersey, taxpayers. That's what you need to think about. There's people struggling in this state. People who've done everything right and are struggling. And instead, you want to help criminals. Chico.
Este republicano apenas acabo de decir que todos los inmigrantes son criminales y que los que estamos votando, lo que van a votar hoy es para proteger criminales, pero rechazamos esa narrativa que toda la comunidad son inmigrantes criminales.
We
rebuttal, Senator.
Mr. Speaker, in the rules, there's no mention of point of order. It refers to basis manual. Basis manual says a point of order as clearly having precedence over any other matter, and you are responsible to acknowledge when you that time. You chose not to, which is a violation of your own rules. Mr. Speaker, I don't think the rules do. You chose basis manual. I am abiding by basis manual. Are we following the rules or not?
You're following the rules. The chair gets to interpret the rules.
Yeah, that would be true if there were room for
no, that's not.
Basis manual specifically says a point of order, as long as it's timely, occurs during the action in which your objective to take precedence over all others, including whoever speaking at the time. There's no room for interpretation. There's room for blatant disregard of your responsibilities as a speaker, and that's what you did. Mr. Speaker, in addition to that, what I was trying to do before you should have allowed me to do is to inform you that the rules that you established say that we are responsible to provide our comments to be questioned under debate, not the bill. So, if you have an interpretation, Mr. Speaker, of what the question is or debate, I'd like to hear it so we know what our limitations are. What is the question?
I think we'll make I will comment on those rules as those issues come back. I think it was the point of order was not not properly done. It's the ruling of the chair that we're confining our conversation or discussion or debate. The question is limited to the scope of the bill. That's our
ruling. Is that the question? What is the question?
I answered the question.
I'm not trying to.
Yes,
it says we have
the question. What's the question? I told you. I want a question for you. Now I spoke to the context of this. That's not a good question. Thank you. You're welcome. Senator Ron.
Thank you, Speaker. About 18 hours, many of us in the chamber are going to be walking across the parking lot. We're going to be taking an oath, and that oath is for us to support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, to bear true faith and witness to those responsibilities. This evening, Mr. Speaker, I feel that there's a certain incongruity. We are literally making a law which directs law enforcement not to enforce the law. If there ever was a much definition of the concept, I think that could be it. But my concern, Mr. Speaker, by our action on this legislation, for those that may choose to vote favorably, I feel it is a direct violation of our oath as legislators. We are not permitted to pick and choose as citizens what laws we like, what laws we dislike, and act accordingly. Not the way it works. We, as legislators, are supposed to be the adults of the room. We are supposed to know better. Frankly, by our actions this evening, we are demonstrating that, in fact, we don't know better, and we are demonstrating that we do know how to violate our oaths. And I hope we give significant thought to that prior to our argument tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. Very good. 9/11 hijackings. 9. 16 terror. 9. Illegal aliens at the time of impact. 9. Under this bill, next terrorist attack, there's an illegal alien who is not provided, not provided to ICE. We'll have another tragedy. Thousands and thousands of This is
Very simple. You don't know if someone's going to get military attack. What happens? If you know they're here illegally, they give you the opportunity to check that. Unlike the million people who came across the border from the left, they were not dead.
Como ven, aunque estamos aquí como pueblo organizado, listos para luchar y defender a nuestra gente, hay varios políticos republicanos anti-inmigrante que están hablando en nuestra contra hoy. Varios, bastante. Estos políticos racistas, anti-inmigrantes, hoy no los vamos a escuchar. Hoy vamos a escuchar al pueblo que se organizó para este momento histórico. Entonces, después de que dejan de terminar estos republicanos, después de que terminan de hablar estos republicanos, vamos a seguir a la votación histórica. Entonces, otra vez de nuevo habla este político republicano anti-inmigrante. Otra vez. No sé por qué tiene tanto odio en su corazón, pero hoy sí no lo vamos a tomar en cuenta.
I think I've been pretty clear. I want the rate to be confined to the four corners of the bill. And I thought you were outside of that. There are always going to be vegetables. Here gets the Senator, you didn't touch that. You had the right eye. You sure? On second thought, okay, sit down.
I'm sorry, just in keeping with my nature of knowing the rules, I was just going to point out that the majority of it is not supposed to walk between someone speaking and the speaker to the rules. It did. You guys make up your own stuff. I don't have any rules. So just try to follow the rules. The majority of it would follow the rules all the time. Follow the rules.
Madam Clerk, please open the machine for a vote.
Ya estamos listos para la votación histórico. Vamos a ver cómo votaron. Pasó la ley. Sí se puede. Está recordando. Ganamos pueblo. Hoy sí ganamos. Sí se puede. Ganamos pueblo. Después de tanto tiempo, tantos meses, años de organizarnos, ganamos. Ganamos pueblo. Ganamos pueblo. Ya casi estamos listos para terminar esa transmisión. Vamos a reportar en vivo después para hablar sobre qué tipos de protecciones ya pasamos, se aprobó hoy en este día, en esta tarde, aquí en la Casa Estatal de Nueva Jersey. Gracias a Dios, ya aprobamos las 3 propuestas de ley hoy. Entonces ya nos toca salir, nos están sacando, pero solamente que queremos terminar con esto. que el asambleísta Don Guardian votó en nuestra contra. El asambleísta Don Guardian votó en nuestra cuenta. So, hoy vamos a celebrar como pueblo. Ganamos las 3 leyes a nivel estatal, pero recuerden que el asambleísta Don Guardian votó en nuestra contra. Gracias. Buenas noches. Dios hoy estaba con el pueblo. Dios hoy está con el pueblo. Buenas noches.